So, a really cool advancement that's been happening in Sonic Frontiers modding is that you can do a lot more with the HUDs now. Before, GUI mods were simple texture replacements, like here on the main menu, you have the Rio Sonic Frontiers logo replacement and the background image replacement, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. I am using a redone Islands UI mod as well, and you can see it replaces all the screenshot images for each island, and it even gives you text on the save slot to show you which island you're on, like Kronos, Rhea, Chaos. And it has these really memorable landmarks as the images, as opposed to just some random skybox shot or a little piece of texture that they use on the ground. I love that the new story image specifically has the end looming over all. But the real meat and potatoes of what's happening here is that I found a mod so clean, it actually made me turn on the UI for once. If you watch any of my other Sonic Frontiers videos, I always have the UI completely turned off for the most cinematic experience we can have. As you see in the bottom left there, we have the sparking ring count just unlike base game, but it has an image behind it with Sonic's face from the actual model and the texture that you see in some of the UI elements. This UI change looks exactly like something you would see in the vanilla game, which is part of what I appreciate so much about it. And if you look closely on Sonic's face there, it actually lights up with like a cybernetic effect every so often. So it has an actual animation, in addition to being this really cool image that also completely rearranges the entirety of where the items are, where the rings are, all that kind of stuff. You get to choose exactly where those are placed on the screen. And as you can see, the pause menu is even changed for this Island UI Overhaul mod as well. It changes all the textures to be less abstract and more in tune with what the Ancients aesthetic looks like. You okay, pal? You need some help? Before, you'd have like the ring count in the top left of the screen, and you'd have all your stats in the bottom left of the screen. You have the speedometer on the right side of the screen, but you can change the placement of all of that now. You can even change what the boost gauge is now. I've seen HUD mods that change it so that the boost gauge is more like the classic boost games, where it's an actual bar on the bottom left hand of the screen. That's one of the coolest parts about today's showcase. But another thing is this personality, animation, and model mod. So one of my absolute favorite things in all of Sonic Frontiers are animation mods. I love how people can change the expression and basically make the whole flow of the game feel different based on the actions that he's doing. Gameplay-wise, everything you do in this game is going to be the exact same every time, but it's the energy that he carries, the bounciness, the way that his quills are able to have more physics depending on the animation. Like, I just think animation mods are one of the most effective things you can do to completely change the feel of this game. And one of my absolute favorite things you can do is change the parry animation. He winds up like Super Smash Bros. And then he just punches the opposition back. Unlike the vanilla animation where he just deflects it with his arm, he just straight up punches you back. Not to mention the wind-up is really cartoonishly goofy, and then he has none of your business and he just punches it back. He does a little jump in the air and everything, and then he puts his arms back on his chest. He even has a unique battle stance as well, where he's kind of like in a similar position as his normal one, but he's like clenching his fists and he's like a little bit more antsy to like move around and all that. Of course, there's new rail animations and rail jump animations. He has some really active quill animations that almost make them look like tentacles to a degree. Oh yeah, that's another UI mod that I wanted to show off. He just punches that thing back. His fist grows like 3 sizes. Look how powerful that shot is with all the sparks coming off of it and everything, dude. He should be bleeding out of his head. But that allows me to now do something like this and utilize the mod where you can do damage with your boost, which is something that they really should have had in the base game. This just makes the combat feel a little bit more like Sonic, like you could in all of the past boost games. Oh yeah, that's another fun thing. So I just killed that enemy with a barrage of sliding attacks. Sonic also has a slide in this mod too. He does this extremely cocky little resting position, and you can use this to damage enemies or just traverse around the area. It's incredibly in character, I love it. Just the imagery of him killing a few of these, and then you actually get a glimpse of what he's doing. And he's literally just resting. He's having so much fun with it. I do really love this rail grinding animation, the way that he like kind of grabs at the bottom of the rail to stabilize himself. Oh yeah, he has a different spinning animation when he's inside of the dash rings too. He looks so cute in that animation, like a little guy. You can see like his mouth is kind of open there, and he's just having a fun time. I love his falling animation from the springs as well. It kind of gives gravity a lot more weight when you're like, when you got the camera positioned up and he's falling down. And he's even got some new trick animations too. Now, one of the cool things you can do now that your boost does damage is you can do a homing attack cancel into a boost, which damages enemies, and sometimes you can even fly off of them too because of it. Let's get a good look at his fighting idol here. Look at that, he clenches his fists. His nose is extremely animated in there too, but he keeps opening and closing his fists. He's so determined. He's got the nice little smirk because there's finally some action happening. It's actually interesting him. And his nose bobs up and down like the cartoon character he is. Oh yeah, I'm also using a fake boost aura. This is actually an existing aura in the game. This is based off of the Nitro boost from Cyberspace, but it's just edited to be blue. There was his dab. Now, one of my favorite little touches is that he even has like a little somersault animation where he catches himself on the ground, hands first, and does like a little front flip. I also gotta say, I'm a big fan of his like running and strolling around animations. Like how peaceful he is when he's just walking. He's kicking his legs around, he's got his hands to his side. It almost looks like he has a certain rhythm to it, like he's got some AirPods in and he's having a nice day. And then you speed it up a little and he's so bouncy. You can see it in his quills, you can see it in his head. The way that his feet are moving around, there's so much space in front of him and the back of him. It actually makes his hand position not look too goofy like it does in some of the modern games like Forces. Yep. I usually don't have that on either, but I decided why not. Why not? We're doing a video that has a lot of GUI changes in it. It's the way his body's all bobbing around and the way they utilize how much space his limbs take up when he's running around. But compared to a game like Forces or Generations, I think that his arms being behind him works a lot better with this because of how much space his legs take up around him. So it's like the only place he could put his arms is behind him for this little anime posing run. Look at that. You can see like the little slow motion spins he's doing on some of these new trick animations. And I guess it also helps that we have this boost aura here because it makes it look like he's trying to barge through everything in his path as opposed to just running normally like a person would. So it makes sense that he'd have his arms like shot back like that, so that his head has more like battering ram power. And I do like that he's doing a similar pose to the vanilla Frontiers and Forces pose where he kind of like has his arms to the side and his fists and everything, but this time instead of looking like he's trying to look tough, it just looks like he's having fun, like he's adventurous, like he's ready to throw hands at any point in time. And I think one of the best animations in here that shows Sonic's eagerness to do things is his boost startup animation. Now, if you know me, there are two animations I love the most in animation mods. It's the parry animation and the boost startup, because you can get so much expression out of those two things. You can make it look like he's doing all kinds of like badass anime stuff. And this one's just hilarious. He actually is doing the cartoon trope of a character that's trying to run as fast as they can, but they're just sitting there in place. It's like he's getting ready to start a race or something. It's so funny. And it looks good at basically every angle, too. I think it's especially cool because now I can actually damage enemies with that. So the transition from this eager little thing into actually destroying someone with his giant head is really cool. Oh, that was really sick, the way that he like rebounded into that spring and he had like his hand reaching outwards. It looked like one of the many poses you would see in a Marza animation where he's flipping all around the place and destroying things. Like you pause and for a split second he's got a unique pose for everything. Let's get another look at this. Just the sheer power coming off this punch. Like, I paused basically frame 1, and this guy is all the way over here already. One of the other things I'd love to show off is that Sonic doesn't just have a grounded animation for his parry, he also has an air parry animation. This is very different from his vanilla animation. He just kind of curl up like this in his air parry animation in vanilla, but it's not to this degree. It's like he's actually getting ready to be in a spin ball. And he's even got a whiff for it, too. He stays in the air for a second and ponders the fact that he just missed that. And then when you hit it, boom! He starts kicking it out with his leg, in this really cool sort of slanted position where he's got his leg bent, his arms bent, he's kind of diagonal in pose, he's got the mean curves on his eyebrows and everything like that. This is just such a good kicking pose. And again, he stays in the air just like when he whiffs it, but this time it's a successful float in the air. When he's in this position, he's like, let me at him, let me at him. Oh, even his tail is animated, that's cool. The way that his whole ass body turned around at the presence of this little tiny rat. Combat animations in general are like the coolest things you can play around with in this game, because prior to this, Sonic wasn't really able to throw hands. I guess he kicked the golem in Sonic Adventure 2, but there aren't many scenes of him like punching and kicking. I guess up until Forces is when they really started doing that. Oh yeah, that's right, he even has like a little tiptoe animation when you're going slow. But like now you can reanimate him to be as anime as you want, or you could take some cues from other combat related things, like wrestling, for example, because now he has this elbow drop as his stomp animation. Look how bendy that arm is. Doesn't matter how noodly he is though, it's just as lethal. I missed. Also, this is probably an underrated part of this animation, the position of his legs and his shoes. Like, every little part of his limbs are so much bigger than they would be on a human, so it's just really appreciated. It's just really appreciated that they utilize every little inch of his lanky, noodly limbs, no matter what he's doing. It's crazy, too, because the stomp feels a lot more fitting for this move, but this feels like it has so much more impact, man. Especially the higher you go when you use the ability. They managed to curve his quills and get his general shape while crouching down pretty snug. Very similar to when he actually does curl. This looks like a crouching position Mighty would have or something, where he's using his shell to guard himself. And he's so smug in every position as well. Look at him. Look how tiny he is. Look how compact he can make his limbs and his arms. And one of the funnest things to play around with is always like how you can transition animations into other gameplay elements. And now to show off the part that inspired this entire video as a whole. Yeah. This is the dynamic UI. It isn't just a regular image replacement like I was saying earlier. Like, we are in the future of Sonic Frontiers mods, where if you can think it, we can probably do it. We can probably figure out exactly what we need to make that happen, to make every little new mod to the game feel official in its level of detail. This is just a thing we can do now. It dynamically switches the image for each character. I don't know, it just feels really in tune with the graphic design of the game, which is something I appreciate, instead of trying to do something drastically different or make it into a Sonic aesthetic that doesn't really represent this game. You'll also notice that Tails has a new idle animation because I'm using boys animations, which are brand new for both Sonic and Tails. This is actually the second Tails reanimated thing that I've seen before. This changes his running animation, his idle animation, and when he falls, he has a brand new impact animation where his arms kind of like pop up, like he's kind of doing like a little ta-da position or something like that. I don't know, it's very cute. And the theme of this video in general is better support for every character. We've went over some things that give Sonic some better support in his game, but let's go over some things that are better for Tails. So besides the animation and the UI, we also have a tweaked version of his flying mechanics, so he actually continuously keeps getting velocity like in the classic games. It can be a little bit annoying when you need precision flying to get to certain places, but it's actually kind of a godsend for situations like this, where you just need to reach that platform. But I guess if you want to keep going just straight, you could cap it like this, like you're playing Sonic 06. It feels like his flying just functions exactly as I pictured it would have. Yeah, again, you could argue that for terms of control, it was better in vanilla, how it reached a very specific amount of height, like it would stay here in vanilla after his initial animation, but I don't know, I like having the option to make things more so like the classic. You can just straight up fly all the way to the tip of this, because he can't actually climb on these, so kind of balance itself out in a fun way. So we all know that Knuckles has his trademark glide. It controls like SA2 thanks to updates, but now he can actually do his little belly slide like the classic games when you get too close. I noticed very early on, one of the things you could do with Knuckles is you could damage enemies with his glide. which is not a thing that I was expecting them to do, but I had to try it anyway because I'm a huge Knuckles fan and I just needed to know. So that was really sick that Sonic Team put that in for no reason. It's not nearly as optimal as his actual combat tree is, but hey, they did it anyway. They have that attention to detail. But then naturally, one of the other things I wanted to try, of course, was what happens when you glide too close to ground, and yeah, he doesn't really do that in vanilla. He just kind of goes back to his standing position pretty quick. But in this, it answers that what if. Just on the fly here, I'm gonna switch over on back to Knuckles, just like that. The image changes instantly, the stats change instantly. All of the information is accurately updated just the way that you want it. Now, I do wonder if you can use this little glide slide to damage enemies at all. Come on, hit me. Thank you. This is for science. I appreciate your sacrifice and contribution. Oh, that's so sick. Not to mention that it just will feel so much better with your momentum when you're chaining really good movement together. And maybe you undershoot the direction of a glide, but you still get to keep the momentum from it anyway, so then that's the difference between you hitting that dash ring and not hitting the dash ring and continuing your awesome chain of movement. Because this game is the game that I turn on when I want to turn off my brain, and I just want to like move around and do cool things for the hell of it. Oh yeah, like this is a really good example of something I can do. I can shoot off of one of these little branches. Kind of crazy that for all like the momentum mechanics they put in this game over the updates and what they were trying with like Knuckles gliding, that they didn't actually just vanilla have this as a mechanic. It's really sick as well because you can use this GUI mod to combine characters mid-combo, and it actually fits into the UI of the game. Like it was made for you to switch characters on the fly and do these Build-A-Bear combos. For example, I'm going to rev up with Sonic, hit this Manski, switch over to Knuckles, pop him up into the air, and just like that, there you have it. Because, like, there's these little slants on the wall here. Can I, like, slide up it? Kind of. I can kind of do that to get up closer up the building. That's kind of cool. And then on the fly here in the middle of platforming, we're going to switch on over to Amy, and it's going to switch to her artwork as well. It's just so cool, man, because the character swapper mod obviously isn't a part of the vanilla game. You're not technically supposed to be doing all of this, but hey, why not? Now, what's the thing that we have for Amy, other than just this awesome Sonic X skin? Well, we gave her another traversal option. The number one thing that I wanted for Amy in this game was actually gonna be her hammer flip from Advanced and Adventure, and she has that exact move in the Amy Jump Ball overhaul, which, again, was supposed to be a simple mod, basically just redoing her jump ball animation, but it ended up giving her 40 different skins, brand new animations, and even that move, which allows her to just bop right off of the tree branch too. That was sick. And now she feels a lot more like she did in Adventure. I feel like Project 06 and Adventure had amazing movement for her. She was one of the most fun characters in that game. Not to be confused with regular 06, where she was one of the most grueling wastes of playtime in any video game I've touched, but... Oh, I have an idea. Let's spin dash off of this, and then start gliding for better positioning. And then we switch, and we use this to take down some of these spinners. This move is pretty sick too, because it isn't just traversal. You can use it to actually hit them, and then combo off of them with her homing attack, and then maybe her Psy Hammer as well. And then let's, I don't know, switch to Tails, and then continue the assault going. Look at that, I just completely blew him up out of his spike force field there. And I don't know, let's finish that off with Knuckles maybe. There we go! I've actually seen some combo videos where people are really efficient at switching between characters mid-combo, so definitely a huge fan. It's cool that you have this mod to kind of accompany everything too, because it makes them feel like so much more of a team when you can switch between them depending on where you're adventuring on the islands to do things that best suit each of their needs. Of course, characters like Amy and Tails can't actually climb, so we bring out the Schnucks and we do a little bit of climbing. Now, I do want to go all the way over there, but that is quite the distance. So I'm gonna leave it up to little bro right here. I just gotta fuel up my engine, so to speak. I also love that it does show you, like, the quantity of items you have, so it shows you what your progression's looking like for the main story. This is definitely one of those mods that I'd have to keep on for the entirety of a full replay. The reason I want to head off over yonder here is because I want to pick a fight with this fella right here. But not with Tails, not with Knuckles, not with Amy, and not really even with Sonic, but with Super Sonic, who also has a UI change. He's got the classic Frontiers mean mug. He's impervious to all of these. He has infinite Psy loops on deck. I love the way that he's completely stationary while moving around in a circle like that. But I'm probably gonna one-shot the poor fellow with Supersonic, so let's just give it to these guys. That's probably an assignment that's more worth their pay grade. Boom, boom, boom. Switch to Amy. There we go. We use the hammer jump for better positioning so we can get the lock on. There we go! Teamwork makes the dream work, baby. But you know what's funny about this? He doesn't actually have immediate support for Supersonic 2. You see in the bottom left, it gets kind of confused, and it still thinks it's Supersonic 1. But isn't that sick, though? Like, it's not just supporting the character swapping code, which is a completely separate mod. It's also supporting the Supersonic transformation, which is a completely separate mod on its own as well. Like, these aren't vanilla things that you can just do. Wow, that turnaround animation is sexy as hell. But yeah, this HUD swapper completely accounts for the Supersonic transformation. That's not to say, of course, that there isn't support for Supersonic 2. Yep, popping back up with Tails. They're raw with it. Oh wow, he's even got a special idle animation for this mod too. I should have known. Really can't blame him for how pretty the atmosphere is on Rhea Island. Man, talk about missed opportunities with this one, huh? Now that I've gone through all of the individual quality of life improvements for every character, yet another feature that I think we all felt like was going to be in the game, as soon as I could get to my dramatic vantage point for footage purposes, it's running on water. Something that, again, like, I don't think that's supposed to happen. There's so many areas in this map with beautiful water-related areas, but when it came down to it, you couldn't really interact with it a whole lot. It was a shame because there were some really clever uses for water segments in Generations and Unleashed. Like, the moment that I saw a big open body of water, like on Kronos Island, for example, I thought to myself, oh my god, they're gonna let me freely run on the water like Sonic himself, and then I sunk like a rock, and then all of my boost was immediately depleting down there. But yeah, this mod actually gives us the brand new ability to run on the water. Not just scoot the line by running on a wall right beside the water, we can actually transition out of that wall run onto the water itself. And everything about the movement just flows so much better now. Like, look at that. Before, you'd have to, like, platform around and not touch the water, which does feel in character for Sonic, but it's also highly in character for him to just run on it, too, you know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't this look raw with this brand new running animation, the boost aura, the moon in the background, the ruins coming out of the water, and then he transitions into a wall run just like that? Like, isn't that more in character, wouldn't you think? God, this area is so beautiful with the birch trees. And then the waterfall and the giant statue where you go to fight Giganto. Such a shame that you couldn't natively run on water. Oh, look how tired he is after that. That's awesome. Now, kind of interestingly, you're not really able to run on the water with the other characters, which is something that I actually kind of appreciate in its own little weird way. Like, yeah, it would be really nice to do this with Knuckles and Amy and Tails. I mean, you could still swim underwater, that's still adorable. I actually kind of like that they can't do it because it really distinguishes Sonic as the fastest character. Now, the real answer of why they can't is probably because it wasn't programmed. It was probably only programmed for Sonic's physics. But again, I still like it for the same reasoning, and I feel like maybe it should stay that way so you can differentiate the characters for different purposes and reasons, just like how I'm going to switch off to Tails here to preserve the momentum from the sky. Now, the final thing that I wanted to show off is some more improvements to Cyberspace. So, in addition to the dynamic HUD in the open zone, we now have this slanted HUD in Cyberspace, with all of this information now provided in a much more organized manner. It's all slanted, and you can see everything all proper-like, and we've got a new rival with us here, too. It isn't just boring old Shadow Tails, it's actual Tails doll from Sonic R. I think this model specifically is using the Superstars one, which I think just makes him a bit more menacing all around. You can see you have the checklist for all the animals in the top left there, you have the number rings and the moon rings next side each other, and of course the timer is now fixed up a little bit. Oh my god, that was a really close save. Thank God. That was a really cool camera angle. I don't think I've ever noticed that before. Oh yeah, this is sick. Now you can actually, like, run into the badniks, just like a classic Boost game. Wow! The future is now! Now, this section was always a pain because of the falling platforms. I actually found this to be one of the few really difficult platforming segments in this DLC. Case in point. Let's freshen things up with Amy. I actually really like how she looks at that angle with her running animation and her cell shading from the Sonic X mod. Also, I just think it's really cool, this variety of Amy going toe-to-toe with Tails doll. You think we would get, like, Tails himself going after him, but nah, we got Amy. And I like, too, that we can actually play around with her brand new traversal ability in this, too. It really goes to show that if these characters just had a little bit more to their movement, they would, be able to make up for their shortcomings in comparison to Sonic's moveset, especially for these linear levels. And then you probably could have actually, like, justified having them in to some capacity. Now, I don't know why, but with all the time I have on this game, it's always this segment that makes me falter. Just gotta utilize my momentum a bit better. I really do think that the hammer is the key. There we go. That's like the cleanest run I've ever done of that segment. And we got the victory camera right in front of me. Gotta flex on Tails doll a little bit here. Gonna wait for him to catch up. Sorry, pal. Alright, that basically concludes what I wanted to look after today. There was just a lot of little mods that kind of built up over time that weren't really able to fit as their own video, but it kind of clicked with me like, hey, these characters are feeling more and more like they were intentionally designed for the entirety of the game, and not just the DLC, thanks to these brand new moves that people are making. I could definitely think of a lot of really good shenanigans for running on water, so that might get its own video at some point. Pretty much everything in this video here today is going to be a permanent addition to my mod list. Every mod used today is in the description, and if you're new here, please check out the modding playlist. It's the bulk of the content that I make, and I do lots of other Sonic stuff too.